So we're here at WERC Global and in Salt Lake City, and we're fresh off just about an hour ago the lump sum panel, the hotly debated, contested topic of lump sums. And so I have here with me two out of the three people who are on the panel today. We have William Taylor from Relocity, and we have Victoria Smith from Rivian. You manage the Global Mobility Program, and your title is Senior Vice President?
Correct. Yeah.
Awesome.
Business development.
Which was good. And then we don't have Trisha here with us. She runs the Global Mobility Program at Adobe, but she had other obligations, so that's fine. We'll try to get her perspective in here just through a conversation. But yeah, for sure. She wasn't able to make it, so feel free to throw her under the bus.
She's nominated me to speak on her behalf.
So just to get us started, I mean, the session made clear that there's really no one-size-fits-all approach to relocation. Yet, the debate, it clearly did strike a nerve. It strikes a nerve, whenever it's brought up anywhere, right? So why does this conversation about lump sums continue to be such a hotly contested one? And polarizing.
You want to take it at the beginning?
You can go first.
I think this is an industry that grew up on traditional moves, managed moves, real estate components. Mm-hmm. Many pieces of the supply chain were built to support those more traditional type of programs, right? Yeah. I mean, if you think about how the RMCs operate, this is how their business model was built, right? And then along came this program called lump sums, cash benefits, and it delivers more flexibility, more personalization, more predictability of spend. Finance likes it because they know exactly what we're going to budget for next year. If we're going to do this many lump sums, we know exactly what they're going to cost, right? Ease of administration, all those factors. And that's just created a difficult paradigm for the folks who've been in our space for many years, for the RMCs. And so we just have this little bit of push and pull where people just kind of need to get over that hurdle to realize that, lump sum is not a one-size-fits-all. But as we heard during the session, and I know Victoria could speak to this, it's more about figuring out who are the populations that would benefit, how do you mix this in and offer some flexibility and some cash-out options to give people that personalized approach. And I think the RMCs are starting to figure out how to create that. I think there's a missing piece that is more supply chain related, mm-hmm. That you and I talked about a bit.
Yeah. I agree, and I think also just, the world has changed. People are so much more global. Relocating isn't as big a deal as it used to be. I mean, it's still disruptive to your family, absolutely, but people are so much more global. So many people that we bring in have relocated before. It's not their first time. And there's so much information just out there. It's not like it was, 25 years ago when you were kind of going to unknown locations.
Yeah. You had mentioned that people are so used to managing everything themselves these days. They're booking their own tickets. They're, tracking their shipments on their phone. So they kind of have that agency to want to do things for themselves. So that makes sense.
I mean, access to information is essentially free.
Yeah.
Right? And it's like back in the day, I traveled in Southeast Asia. I lived in Vietnam in the late 90s, and it was all about the Lonely Planet Guide. And I carried these massive books around. And my wife and I moved there for a few years. We didn't have a relocation management company. We didn't have a Relo package. I did the same when we moved to Argentina. We didn't have an RMC, right? But we had resources, and we figured it out. And now the accessibility to those types of resources is just so prevalent. Right. So people are it's not to say that there is not a place for managed moves. There absolutely is. Mm-hmm. But I think we will continue to see lump sums play an important role in mobility programs.
Well, during the session, you did ask the audience a lot of polls. You were using the Slido, right? And it worked the majority of the time.
Yeah. Thank you. User error on my end on the first one. I was thinking, oh gosh, this is going to happen to all of them. Yeah.
Did anything surprise you from the results of any of those polls, or was it all sort of what you expected to see?
I think there's just I think there's a general perception that, people use cash, but that it can't deliver a good experience. And what we've certainly found in our population is that, a good experience doesn't always have to be a white glove service. People like to make their own decisions. They like to be empowered to make the choices and to do things their own way. So, I think we find that, self-service isn't a dirty word. It doesn't mean that we're not supporting and looking after our population, and we do have a level of duty of care to them, but we're also not imposing on them, this is how you have to relocate. You must have a car to ship. You must need accommodation. They can make those choices for themselves. So
Yeah, you guys both mentioned we hire adults several times. I was like, yes, I think everyone in the room hires adults, and we should expect that they make the right decisions, right, and take accountability.
Say too that both you and Tricia talk really more about a hybrid model where it's not we give you cash, you have to go on your own now and decide to make everything yourself. It's not like just throwing people to the wolves. Like I think for your company, for senior leaders, you still do have some management.
yeah, absolutely we do. And even further down into the organization, for that middle layer, we just let them choose. Do you want cash and some technology and you manage this themselves? Or do you want to be, more handheld and have things organized for you? And we let them make that decision. There is no pressure on one way or the other. It's just whatever works for you. We don't know whilst I've been in mobility for a long time, I don't know what is right for your family and your particular situation right now. You know that. You make that decision. I don't want to make it for you just because I run the program.
I think that is, you captured sort of the way we have often framed relocation in this industry. And I think this is partially why Relocity has been so successful since we were created 9 years ago. Is like, we came along and said, well, there's a better way to just personalize this experience. Let's give the power to the transferee. I think we've had this mindset in mobility of like, we know what's best. We've done it for 30, 40, 70 years. This is what you need. And yet that is just not the world we live in. We have a full aisle in the grocery store dedicated to potato chips. Yeah. Because you have to enjoy 400 different flavors, right? And so if people can choose their chips, they can probably choose the right benefits as it relates to their relo. I know, very different worlds, chips versus relo, although I'm here to be the first one to bring them all together. Excited about where we're headed with this.
Well, so Victoria, you and Tricia both talked about sort of the culture of your organizations. Rivian, obviously a tech company, Adobe as well. So the culture maybe and demographic of those companies might lend itself maybe better to a lump sum option. What about maybe some of the perspectives that weren't on the panel today, maybe a more traditional company? What do you think their thoughts would be? Or do you have any sense of are they still going toward lump sum? Is it kind of agnostic of the type of company? Or is it, do you have any sense of that?
I do think in tech companies it's much more driven through the whole culture of the organization to experiment, try different things. I think that's a freedom that we have. It's an expectation that we have of our people to problem solve and solutionize. We're not here to be your parents and to take care of all of your issues for you. But at the end of the day, I feel like people who are relocating are just people who are relocating. Obviously we consider ourselves a tech company, but we are also, an automotive manufacturer. So we have many populations within our organization, and, we want them to be able to make the right decisions, which isn't so much what job you do. And I think we are really looking through our mobility programs to continue, the adventurous spirit that is Rivian, and we're very blatant about that is what we're doing. So.
I think back to one of your earlier questions about the slides, right? Yeah. If you think, we had a slide that asked about sort of what was the nature of your program? Is it all lump sum, hybrid, a mix, and we saw that, 83 or 85% were like hybrid, lump sum, and some form of management. And yet it was 2% or 3% were 100% lump sums. Right? So I think that, and I know from looking across the room during the session that we had a mix. We had manufacturing, we had biotech, we had pharma, we had high tech. We had folks from all different flavors of companies who were addressing that question. Yeah. So I think it's clear that, lump sum is here to stay, and it will, there's different evolutions of it. There's different platforms coming up to support it and provide that experience. And I'm excited to see where it all goes. Yeah.
Well, I think something important that came out of the discussion was the data you leaned on for Rivian specifically, right? The aspect of it, obviously it's a cost effective for Rivian to offer lump sum, right? But it also, in the data, showed, I think you said 75 to 80% of eligible employees chose that option. And then when you followed up, they would, a percentage of which would have done so again. And I think the audience, I was kind of, I was part of the audience and I was listening, and they were kind of shocked by that, I think. Why do you think they were so shocked?
I mean, I was shocked when I first saw the data because, it was higher than I was expecting. And, we really weren't sure when we gave cash whether people would be, I wasn't so much surprised by people choosing cash over a managed move, but how did they feel afterwards, I think, is the most important question in the survey. And at the end of the day, we just continue to hear the feedback of people like to feel empowered to make their own choices. They like the flexibility that it brings. I think another really important thing for us about cash lump sums that we haven't really talked about is one, yes, there is a cost element, and I think that's important for, what companies aren't looking to reduce relocation spend. I mean, that's one thing. But to us, it's not just about the absolute dollars. It was really about how do we maximize the return on the investment for every relocation dollar that we're getting. And, it really became apparent very quickly that people don't always value some of the benefits that they were being provided. Now, they don't have visibility to the cost of their shipment or the cost of their temporary housing. Had they known, and when they do have visibility, sometimes they come back and say, had I known, I would have made different choices. So giving people cash really did change the spending behavior, and we now know, because people are deciding what to do with it, they're getting maximum value for whatever that means for them. And who am I to disagree as to, well, I think it would have been more valuable if you'd shipped goods rather than buying new ones. So that for us was just a real way of us getting return on investment.
Yeah. Well, you mentioned too that Rivian doesn't track the spending. How do you maintain the confidence that the program's still delivering the value? Because you're offering an amount, right? You're not asking them to tell you what they spent it on. How do you know that amount is going to maintain what it should for your business and for the employee?
We survey the employees and we get feedback. I mean, if we ask the question, was it enough? I expect to hear, no, people always need more.
Was it too much? No.
Exactly. We don't get a lot of that feedback, but I think we would hear noise and a lot more noise. Yes, do we sometimes get people coming back and saying, I ended up spending more. Now, I don't know whether that's because of some of the choices that they made. But on the whole, we don't get a ton of noise and feedback of people saying, this isn't it, or saying, I'm not going to relocate if that is the package. That's just not the experience that we've had.
Makes sense. And if it's working for the business and it's working for them, why does it matter what exactly they spent on, moving their bed to wherever they're going?
Yes, or buying a new bed or doing whatever. So,
well, I got one more question. I want to open it up in case you have anything out. But what is one misconception about lump sums or managed moves you'd most like to see the industry move past today? Like, are we still going to be having this conversation in 2 years, 5 years, 10 years? Is lump sum just going to become the norm? Is it still going to be this hybrid approach? I know there's kind of two questions there, but
yeah,
I want to hear what.
That's a good question. I mean, look, I think we'll still have this debate for a few more years, maybe 5, 10, maybe more, maybe forever.
Yeah.
But I think the industry will come to accept the fact that, a lump sum is not a negative experience. You can still provide a great, because you're addressing the need for flexibility, personalization, you're hiring adults, they take responsibility, and there's so many tools out there for them to figure it out. And then, of course, when you bring in some of the great technology that's just evolving in the world of mobility, you can really start to create this really modern consumer experience. So, I mean, look, I think there's no denying managed move is a great experience, particularly when you don't know what the costs are. But we are all stewards for our company. And as much as I love the work that our friends in the household goods and the temp housing, and yeah, there's definitely a reason why those types of services have a certain cost associated with it. I just think we are going to continue to see just an evolution of different hybrid programs where these flexible cash out options become really prevalent, and we will see more and more employees, particularly as the workforce becomes heavy on Gen Z and then Gen Alpha, who are pretty comfortable doing things in an app and getting things done on their own, and they're really resourceful, and that's the world they've grown up in, right? Not to say they won't get to a point in their life where they will value that really high-touch white glove. We'll pick you up at the airport, we'll help you buy or sell a home, etc. They will, or maybe. I just think it's going to be a mix of a lot of different flavors in the years ahead, with no right or wrong.
Yeah.
You made a joke at the beginning of the session about how lump is just a bad word.
Well-
It kind of sucks. Maybe it's just there's a branding problem.
We
We got a lot of branding problems in this industry. That's true.
That's a question we should have asked. What
we
should it be
should
better
have.
called?
Darn it, we could have like a word cloud.
3 years we're having the same discussion, but we're calling it something.
I mean, it's a cash benefit, right?
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
I don't know what else we'd call it. I don't even know. I wish I knew where the evolution of the term lump sum came. I tried to look it up, but I couldn't get clear. At least ChatGPT failed on that one. But yeah, we need to rebrand that and make it sound a little more attractive.
And I'm with you. I mean, I think our cash lump sums have been very effective, for our populations and for what we're doing. But nothing stays static, right? We absolutely do manage moves. Do I see a world in which we would stop doing those? I mean, no. And I think, I think we did make the point that it is somewhat different moving into the U.S. or whatever location companies are headquartered in versus, sending people out to perhaps some more challenging locations to move to. But I think you absolutely need the whole spectrum. I do see as the economy changes, there's, typically when there's an economic downturn, there's a more movement towards lump sums.
Definitely.
In times of prosperity and very tight labor markets and you're all competing for the same talent, that may be where, a richer relocation package may make the difference. I'm not a huge proponent of that. I like people to join for the job rather than the
Yeah.
relo package, but there can be a time where those small those things can be differentiators. So I think it's, none of this is static in my opinion. And I think, certainly on the program that we have, I think we want to be able to, service a broad spectrum of employees and also, meet the needs and the business reality of what we have to spend.
Yeah.
Whole side. Any final thoughts, William?
I mean, look, I think we hit it. It's like it's an ever-evolving industry, and the policies and programs will continue to change. And it's been really interesting and fun sort of learning from Rivian and Adobe and hearing their experience. And, you guys both sort of had some different approaches and some different theories, net versus gross, payroll versus RMC,
Yeah.
right? And that was okay. Every company is going to sort of look at this in the context of what's most important to their company, their populations. And I think what will be fun is to see, and we talked a little bit about this after the session ended, is, you may have this kind of lump sum or cash out, and then how do we start to layer in some benefits that may not be too costly, but can still make a little bit of an impact, whether it's rental support or a DSP, or maybe it's 5 days in a hotel, whatever it might be, that's not incredibly expensive, but it starts to really move the needle a little further on the employee experience.
Yeah, that's a great point.
Yeah.
Well, thank you both for joining me here today and for doing the panel today at WERC Global. I hope you had a great time. I certainly did.
Thanks, Alexa.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.